Hello, my name is Ashna.
Hi, my name is Aman.
We're here on behalf of Zenova, a startup committed to bringing the benefits of organization to all students. Meet Mariana, a rising freshman at Duke who feels unprepared for her first year at college. On her first day at campus, she's met with 7 different classes to schedule, draining lectures and emails flooding her inbox. But for Mariana, overcoming these day-to-day struggles has no current solution.
And Mariana, she's not alone. Nearly 3.2 million students in the US and Canada drop out in just the first year because of organizational challenges.
This is where Zenova comes into play. With its intuitive scheduling, seamless organization, and advanced note-taking capabilities, Zenova uses artificial intelligence to help students organize their day.
Now, Zenova integrates with all of the most popular learning management systems in North America. This includes LMSs such as Blackboard, Brightspace, and Canvas to keep students updated with their schedules and their assignments. Zenova also delivers daily debriefs of your assignments, your emails, and your events to help you organize your day. Zenova also offers an overview of all your emails, creates drafts, and sends them so that you never have to. Similarly, Zenova helps you with calendar scheduling, where it automatically updates your calendar to keep up with all of our other features. Zenova offers transcription, where it turns recordings into highlights and notes, so you don't have to skim through hours of content. And finally, Zenova integrates your classes, your tasks, and your outside activities to create a tailored study plan, saving you hours every day.
In just 7 days, our affordability and student-centric model has led to 628 users on the waitlist ready to try out our product, with 10 beta users currently testing our AI for free.
So you might be wondering, how do we generate revenue? Well, for each user, we offer a 2-week free trial followed by an $8 monthly charge. With 628 current potential users, that's nearly $5,000 in revenue per month. But why should students even choose Zenova? First, Zenova is specifically integrated to best suit student needs, as opposed to Lindy AI, an AI that targets industry professionals through business-to-business contact. Also, Zenova provides far more student-centric integrations than ChatGPT.
And Zenova's market is exponential. The global market for college and high school students scales to nearly $51 billion. The market in the United States and Canada scales to $2.3 billion. And from this, Zenova's target market is $20 million. And we are so excited because this is just the start for us. By using social media advertisements on Instagram and TikTok, word of mouth, and reaching out to students, we aim to get 10,000 people on our waitlist with 100 active users by the fall of 2023. And by the winter of 2023, we aim to get 20,000 people on our waitlist with 500 paid users. Our team is the perfect group to do this because we're all students who've struggled with organizing and planning our day. But with Zenova, we strive to bring the ease of scheduling to every student.
We're seeking $140,000 in investment. And from this, we plan to invest $20,000 in operating costs, $30,000 in marketing, and $90,000 in engineering to build the best product possible.
With Zenova, students won't have to worry about spending hours every day organizing events, taking notes, and sending emails. Instead, with its affordable integrations and student-centric model, Zenova will free up your time so that you can do what you love.
Together, let's help students optimize their time today. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, one of my first questions is why was the conversion rate from your wait list to your beta users what it was? That seemed a little low.
Yeah, that's partly just because of Google's OAuth limitations. We're not verified right now, so there's kind of limits on the amount of users we can have, up to 100 right now.
Right, but 10's lower than 100.
Yeah.
To add on to Max's point there, since we're integrating with different LMSs across various universities and colleges, we need approval from their department in order to even gain access. Otherwise, we risk some legal complications. And in order to gain that approval, that process can take anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks. Thus, our number is quite low.
As a follow-up question for that information, just kind of curious about your, I guess, strategy. You said you're going to go, social media, share it with everyone, but with this information that it needs specific approval per university, I'm kind of curious why you're not targeting, a couple specific universities first to get that approval and kind of focus efforts. And you had also mentioned that different universities are using, some might use Blackboard, some might use other tools as well.
Yeah, so I guess the primary idea was that we first try to find out actual interest for this. And I guess that was primarily the reason why we had a social media campaign as well. And even in our social media campaign, we target these various schools by primarily trying to go after their student councils as well as their various student-run organizations.
Your question would be, you kind of like projected that you will convert 100% users to customers, right? You said if 600 people and paying you $8, is that going to be the conversion rate, 100%? Or do you expect it to be a different from, people trying your product 2 weeks trial to maybe, and what does that look like?
So our goal was to have 100 paid users in the sense that 100 people had committed to paying that $8 a month fee.
But what do you expect the conversion rate to be, right? I mean, you don't have 100 people yet, right? How many people are going to end up paying you? Yeah.
So we expect the conversion rate to be like on the lower side, so around like 40-ish%.
That's quite high, but yeah. Thank you.
I guess one of the things I'm trying to understand when looking at this is why this product specifically? I mean, I went to an incredibly, time-consuming, difficult college, one of the most, famously painful colleges. And I do remember it being difficult to manage my time. But it wasn't because I didn't know what was on my Blackboard. It was because unexpected things came up, many of which weren't actually written down anywhere. Sometimes things get moved around unexpectedly. Also, just sometimes things take time, and, a bunch of the things, some of the features that are here, things like lecture summarization, aren't necessarily about time optimization, right? I mean, that's just sort of a thing that students might wish that you had. So can you walk through how you went to building this product, how you chose to build these features and why you think that this is going to solve the problem of students dropping out? How you came to that conclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. So in order to even decide on those features, what we did was we went to various different universities as well as high schools in our respective cities and basically posed students the question, what takes up most of their time, why, and how they would change it. And in doing so, we got data saying that they were primarily, most of their time was spent on scheduling as well as doing homework, taking notes, and also just studying in general. So what we then did was we wanted to dive in even deeper into why it was taking the most time. And then we soon found out that students wanted some recreational time. They also wanted, say, their assignments to be completed quicker. And as such, we decided on these features. And even to validate these features, we went back to those same students and proposed them this idea. And we had a really high interest.
Right, but here's the thing, right? If you take the example of summarizing the lecture, it would be great to get bullet points, And it would be great for homework to take less time, but taking time is part of what makes you learn the material. Like if your goal is just to check off the checkbox of finishing your homework, yeah, of course it'll help you get that done faster. But if the goal is to learn the material so that you don't bomb the test, you're not necessarily going to actually achieve that goal. You know, and you see this actually a lot of times with products where you'll do surveys and people will say, well, I want, you know, something. And what they'll want is something that's not necessarily compatible with another goal they have, or maybe something where what you actually have to do is a fundamental advance. Like a lot of people, you know, like weight loss is a really classic example where people would say, well, I want to lose weight, but then they'll say, I don't want to do the things that make me lose weight. And now you have like a pharmaceutical, but that required like decades of science and like over $100 billion investment, right? So I would just say that like one of the things I would like even in the survey you mentioned, most of the things that you mentioned are not scheduling. They're not actually like solving time. They're wanting to make the fundamental process of learning easier. Where the real product that you would want to build would be like Neuralink, right? So I guess I would say like you want it like in terms of the optimization, you know, I would just continue to think about like what really makes it easier. And even for $7.99, like what's being done that someone, you know, isn't, you know, able to do themselves really. Because even at $7.99, I'm not sure that you're necessarily going to even beat your OpenAI API costs.
Very expensive. I mean, I think the big thing is that I think I'm curious about, of course, you know, you're saying the conversion rate is, of course, 40%-ish. It's way too high. I think you're gonna, if you end up getting 10% to even 15%, that's lucky at this stage. But I think the big question is like, what are they even using? Because I think you have a lot of features like transcribing, of course, like booking, you know, scheduling and what's happening. But then you have Blackboard app. I mean, you're using like multiple apps, right? Like on a daily basis, you check your schedule for classes, then you look at some app for like what's on my assistant, whatever. Then you have this Blackboard stuff where your assignments are being assigned and whatever is happening. And then you have this I think it's a lot of stuff. So how does this fit? Is it like a nice to have that I wake up and I maybe check it for 2 weeks and 4 weeks and maybe 8 weeks, and then I never go back to it again. Or maybe there's like a one feature that really works, and that's like, let's say, transcribing notes. And I agree with Evan, like if you just transcribe or like summarize the notes, right? You're really not studying actually. I mean, you might not drop out, but you might not have to gain a lot of knowledge actually.
I do want to synthesize something that AJ said and something that Kristen said, because I think that it's so important. And that is about the importance of narrowing and also the importance of retention, which is like, you may get some people to sign up and honestly, like, yeah, 40% super optimistic, but like the way more important thing is like how many people actually stick with it. This is, by the way, a consistent problem with educational tools where like a lot of people inherently you graduate. And this is actually a reason that a lot of investors get scared by educational ed tech investments. But we'll put that aside for now because you also have mandatory signups for a lot of these tools. You know, I think that one of the things that I'd be really thinking about is how, you know, yeah, you get some people to sign up, but even if you get 40% to sign up, with a lot of these LLM tools, you have a huge retention problem where you'll have like a million plus people who sign up, but then their retention rates, which people actually call smile curves, will be really low. And so like, that's really bad. Now, Kristen mentioned, why not focus on a few schools? That'll make your building way easier. Because AJ mentioned you had all of these tools that you have to support. Well, you know what? Like every school has like, they're either paying for Outlook or Google Calendar. They're either paying for Blackboard or they're paying for Canvas. If you pick like one or two, you will only have to support one of those. And then what you can do is actually focus on what is the feature that my users care about and not what is the annoying integration that I'm going to break my brain over for a week. And that because finding the feature that users care about is way harder than what is the integration that's a pain in the butt. but it may actually take more engineering hours to solve the integration problem. It's this weird thing that happens. So I would just consider that narrowing idea that Kristen had.
Yeah, and I want to add on that too. Of course, right, when you're doing research, there's, surveys, et cetera. But a lot of the time, I think both AJ and Evan mentioned that, right? You have to see what they actually do. The users might say, okay, yeah, of course, I'm going to use this transcription tool. And then when you look at the data, they don't use that at all. And I think to follow up on what AJ was saying, and Evan touched on this a bit, like, when I think of myself in college, right, of course, I had a lot of it was actually balancing everything that had to do with, the learning and education with, all the fun I wanted to have or the extracurriculars. And so I think, right, if you're focusing on, your core problem of organization and balancing that, like that even brings another, social media, like a lot of events might, I don't know if people use Facebook anymore, but Eventbrite, Facebook, whatever social media, or even paper flyers, et cetera. So I think right now when I look at the features, there's just so much going on. So it's just first, like, what are your hypotheses? How are you going to nail that MVP and then really get that retention? And I also want to emphasize, going forward, I think the biggest cap that stands out to me that's limiting you is this 100 users on Google OAuth, right? Right, like you're just capped forever at 100 active users until you go beyond that. So I think what stands out as well is like really figuring out a plan on, how to tackle that. I don't know if Outlook has that cap or, how you're going to figure that out. But if you don't solve that, like you're forever going to be capped at 100 users.
Yeah, that cap is just temporary until Google verifies us for like a few weeks.
That's long. I guess the last thing I'll leave you with is just like a hardcore number that you have. I hope is going to help you. Yeah, just touching on Evan, AI churn, just to give you, and doesn't matter which company you talk to, it starts at 20%. Okay, it starts at 20. It goes as high as 40% annually. So whatever, so if you acquired 100 customers today, end of the year, you might only have 50, or maybe only, if you get lucky, you might have 80 actually. So let's just start there. So the thing is, it's a really wavy funnel, given this is AI is a brand new market, by the way. Anyone who tells you about that they know about AI, they have never seen the AI market before. First time everyone is seeing it and observing what companies look like. So you would need something that is not like people come for fun, something that is very sticky. Sometimes it's like old school stuff, like fundamental problem that you're solving, whatever that looks like in this problem set of features that you have, right? And you can match that with AI and your funnel looks much better. Eventually you'll figure out how to make it more sticky. I'll just give you that thought.
I'm just going to build on what AJ is saying and say that the stickiness is what you're looking for. But I'm going to have one point where I'm going to slightly diverge, and that's where was mentioning fun. And that is that I think that when you're in the uber earliest stages of your company, the creativity is actually really essential. Because like AJ said, AI is a brand new technology. It's like cloud, it's like mobile, where when people came out with it, a lot of people didn't actually realize what the best applications would be. Like just the other day, there was this talk that was given by actually one of the guys who works at YC, Mike Seibel, and he mentioned that everyone knew Maps was going to come to mobile, but no one knew that Uber was, which is a really great point. And so I think that going out there and finding here's a feature that I think is kind of dumb, but whatever, I'll give it a shot just to see what people respond to. And by the way, don't skimp on the telemetry. Like Kristen's right, like people give surveys, look what people are actually using. Do that and see what are people actually using. And that's super critical, because the reality is that not only do people not totally understand yet what people are going to react to as users, there's still things that people are figuring out about the technology. And I know that people sometimes say like, oh, AI, it's so mysterious. Like any new technology, you have this, because people are still figuring it out. There are optimizations where there's 10 geniuses that haven't even messed with the technology yet, who are going to figure out things then they're in the future. We don't know what they are yet. I would just encourage you to be creative. And that's especially in the early stages. But I will say that what AJ mentioned about the stickiness, that is what you are looking for. I'll just leave you with one story about a company that there's a good chance you use called Pinterest. And what's really interesting about Pinterest is that Pinterest is actually most famous for its very rapid user growth, like some of the most rapid user growth of any company ever. And yet, for the first year, it actually had almost no user growth. It got to about 150,000 users, which at internet scale, even for that time, was like not bad, and then stopped after like 3 months. And for about a year, it was just sort of stuck there. And, a lot of founders would have given up. But what happened was that the founder, Ben Silbermann, noticed that there was like this cadre of like, 1,000, 2,000 users who were really dedicated to Pinterest. They were using it really all the time, like nonstop. And so what he did was he hosted meetups. And those users would actually come to the meetups. They liked the product so much, they would come to a bar in San Francisco just to talk about Pinterest. And they would actually tell him what features were missing, what they liked the most, what they hated the most. And he would come and he would fix the problems. And every 2 weeks, he'd host another meetup. And so over time, what would happen is that he would fix this. And every 2 weeks, like, yes, he wouldn't spark his user growth, but the people who would come to those meetups would be happier. And eventually what happened was those users became so happy that they started telling their friends. And then those friends started telling people. And eventually the growth became what Pinterest was famous for. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to be creative and to just have like, if you're stuck at like 1,000 users for a year, but those users really freaking love you, that's not the worst thing in the world. I know that was a kind of long story, but I just wanted to, make sure that, because I think everyone's listening, right? So I just want to make sure everyone got that.
Yeah, for sure. We're all are. Thank you, Evan. Great. Thank you very much, Zenova. Move back to the backstage. We have consensus. Evan, you want to announce the honorable mention and the outstanding company?
All right, let's do that. Just want to emphasize, by the way, that you all did actually a really good job in a really short amount of time. In the Olympics, there are winners and losers, but everyone runs an objectively good running time. So the honorable mention is Zenova, and the most outstanding company is Irony. And I do want to say something about why those two companies were chosen, which is both companies were actually selected based on how close you got basically to, to users. How close you were to people using you, how often you seem to be interacting with your users, how, that kind of, how close you were to, to revenue and some repeatability of it. That was the metric that we used. And to some extent, this depends on the time, but certainly right now in this macroeconomic environment, real companies, that is what they are being judged by. And so that is what we judged you by as well.
Thank you very much, Evan and Kristen. They have to go to run their own companies, to do their own thing. Thank you very much for sharing a part of your day with us. I think it's very useful for the kids, and it's going to be one of the most impactful days that they have had so far in their lives. So thank you very much for being part of that and providing that for them, Evan, Kristen, and AJ that had to go to a meeting as well.
Thanks again, Stock. Goodbye, everyone. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
so much,
you.
Stock, and really incredible work. It's so impressive to see what you've built together in, through your time at Leangap. So don't stop building and keep putting yourself out there.
Exactly.
I agree. And just remember, like, when you see like 10 users and just remember, it's like 4 weeks, like 10 users in 4 weeks is like awesome. That's like incredible. I haven't had anything I've ever built that got 10 users in just 4 weeks, because that also means you had to build it in 4 weeks. That's really amazing.
Yeah, that is actually pretty good feedback. Very good feedback, real feedback as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
All right.
Evan.
Bye,
Kristen.
everyone.
Bye.